Hi, I'm Martin Walker, Head of Practice Development for Self-Directed Support, and today I'm going to be sharing my take on what CQC Local Authority Assurance tells me about how well we're doing with direct payments. You don't have to look far on social media to notice that those who work in and around direct payments are frustrated with the current state of affairs, highlighting a policy objective that seems to be stagnating, using publicly available data on the rate of uptake and use of them in England. It would be good to better understand the variance that is highlighted in some of these posts and to try and get under the skin of these numbers and pin down the real story. That's going to take a while, so I did some digging into reports by CQC about local authority assurance assessments that they've published to date. I've organised my thoughts and reflections around what seem to me to be the key ingredients of direct payments working well. A clear, sustained strategic commitment to self-direction, with direct payments actively encouraged as a preferred way people can achieve this. Proactive support and encouragement of flexible and creative use of the direct payment, where monitoring doesn't restrict this flexibility and creativity. Clear information about what a direct payment is and how it works, what people's responsibilities are depending on how they choose to use it. A simple process for getting one set up and working. Practice that helps people understand their options, encourages flexible and creative use, and handholds them through what can be a steep learning curve. This last bit might look like handing on to experts in a direct payment support team. Ongoing expert support for people and practitioners. Often this is best provided by a dedicated team. If the person chooses to employ a personal assistant, there's a pool of these available locally who have the right qualities and values. People can also choose from a range of services that have grown locally in response to what people want from flexible and creative use, things that micro providers are particularly good at evolving. Most importantly, that what people say about their experience stacks up with what the local authorities say about their offer. There's an implication here that people have been influential in making improvements with the local authority that they're co-produced. Here's what I found. Clear, sustained commitment. I was pleasantly surprised with this one. Over half showed a really clear and positive commitment to direct payments. For example, the local authority was ambitious about direct payments. They aimed to make them the preferred model of service provision. There was a clear organisational focus on them across all levels. Others were not so clearly committed strategically. Most of the people we spoke with were unaware that direct payments were an option to them, despite the local authority staff telling us they discussed the option of a direct payment with everyone when planning their support. Staff and leaders told us they felt the lack of uptake for direct payments was due to the large choice of commissioned services they had, which meant people had choice without having to use a direct payment. There is so much activity around other policy themes, it can be hard to believe that choice and control remains a central plank of government policy, especially when people continue to say that this is one of the main things they want from adult social care. Reading the reports was reassuring this policy goal is still alive and being pursued. It left me feeling most people in our system still believe that direct payments are the best way for people to achieve this and that more needs to be done to secure this aim for more people. Improvements. This wasn't just rhetoric. In a similar number of reports, there was clear evidence of solid action being taken to make the changes necessary, in many cases in co-production with people. Action was being taken to increase the uptake of direct payments and was one of the local authority transformation projects. It did feel that in a further substantial number, the plans were less positive or progressed. A direct payment review used co-production groups to try to address the reasons behind low uptake. Flexibility. This was no surprise to me. I hear wide-ranging experiences from both practitioners and people on this key aspect, underscored in the statutory guidance as critical to the success of direct payments. People told us how they use their direct payments to flexibly meet their needs using services they choose rather than commissioned services. Good. People fed back to the local authority that the rigid rules around how direct payments were to be used were creating barriers for people to take them up. Efforts were ongoing to address these issues. Not so good. Jury's out till the efforts take effect, I guess. Information. Always an issue, and it seems inherently tricky to solve. And this is definitely not exclusive to direct payments in my experience. Views like this were common. We consistently heard people were unaware of direct payments and other available support options, showing people were not fully informed about the resources they could access. That's not to say efforts to address this weren't evident, and in some cases this had worked well. People who used a direct payment and unpaid carers told us they had the information they needed about their direct payment. Process. Again, no surprises here for me. A real mixed bag. It seems in some places we couldn't make it more complicated and difficult. Sometimes this acted as an incentive to drive choice towards in-house or commissioned services. We were told by staff and people the uptake had been limited by a process which was difficult to access. People had found it easier to manage care and support when home care was delivered directly by the local authority and no longer needed to be managed through a direct payment. Some places, though, seemed to be able to create simple, streamlined processes where there were no delays to starting care and support. The local authority had clear processes and guidance in place to support staff and people who use services to set up direct payments. And there was no current waiting time for a direct payment to start after an individual budget had been agreed. Practice. This is an area of interest for me at the moment and a focus for activity at TLAP. Understanding practitioners' thought processes and how they view direct payments, either positively or negatively, seems to me to be key to unlocking progress. It seems to me their perceptions are critical to influencing the choices people make about a personal budget option. It also seems to me there seems to be a long way to go to persuade a good portion of practitioners that direct payments can and should be the option for most people. As an interface to leadership here, it felt like in a good number of places, a lack of clear steers and encouragement from leadership has led to confusion and sometimes de-skilling. Staff feedback indicated there was uncertainty within the workforce about how and when to support people with care and support needs to take up a direct payment. Staff also told us there were challenges due to differing ways of working between the social care and finance team. This was described as working separately and caused delays and mixed messages for people with care and support needs who use direct payments. In other places, the story was much more positive. Staff were knowledgeable about direct payments. They confidently highlighted how they would discuss direct payments as an option with a person based on a strengths-based conversation at their assessment. Social care assessors and social workers were providing people with the choice and information using a person-centered approach. Direct payment support. For me, this seems to be a critical factor to success. Most comments about support teams were positive. Supporting practitioners to be informed and have a positive outlook about direct payments seems to be a key role, hand-holding practitioners as well as people in the steep learning curve. The Direct Payment Support Hub team was being piloted for 12 months. Staff told us they hoped this would become permanent as they were excellent. The Hub had practitioners who had specialised training to support the setup and initial review of all new direct payments. Personal assistance. One of the ways people can use a direct payment, and it seems overwhelmingly the predominant way that they are currently. No surprises here also. We've documented a recent history of poor availability of PAs and issues that have made the situation worse, like poor pay. Researchers have clearly articulated the particular issues, the unique and close relationship between them and their employer, for whom they provide personal care more often than not, can present. a good proportion of this sort of thing. Staff told us there were difficulties in accessing personal assistance, as there were a shortage of personal assistants in the area. People told us their main concern with direct payments was the provision of personal assistance. They said it was challenging to find age-appropriate, young and skilled staff. This was corroborated by unpaid carers who said that social workers offered direct payments. However, it was difficult to recruit personal assistants. Yet some places seem to have cracked this nut. An organisation was commissioned to provide support and source personal assistance, and staff said this worked well. We had feedback from people that direct payments enabled them to employ personal assistants to help with managing their life and social activities, as well as making contingency provision for emergencies. Diverse market. This one I found really interesting. In some respects, it echoes what I believe about two things. One, diverse market does not equal micro providers. I think micro providers are brilliant. They do respond to gaps in provision and enable much wider choice that's not just about personal assistance. But I don't think flexible and creative completely equals micro providers. I don't think micro providers would either. Some places seem to think it does. There was also a commissioning lead for micro providers who was successfully supporting people to enter the caring marketplace, creating services for people to buy with direct payments. 2. There are places that are trying hard to create better options for managed services such as home care. I wonder if this has an effect on people's take-up of direct payments, either because practitioners offer them as a first resort, or because people just choose them as they sound good. So what's the interplay between managed services quality and direct payment use? Well, we don't quite know at this point, and maybe that's something to look into in the future. Staff and leaders also said an increase in choice among home care providers had led to fewer people accessing a direct payment. More work was needed to support the voluntary and community sector and residents to understand direct payments, as groups were worried about the introduction of direct payments by default. The VCS felt commissioned services provided more stability. Conclusions. Overall, I was pleasantly surprised at what I read. A broad commitment to the policy goal of maximising choice and control. Good evidence of lots of active improvement to achieve this goal for more people. Good evidence some places have fixed all or most of the issues and things are working well, and this is corroborated by local people, reflecting a good experience. Lots of evidence of others trying. There were no surprises in the issues that were reflected. Lots of what I read chimed with what I believe based on my work supporting people and practitioners in this area. It felt like at least some of the improvement work highlighted may have been initiated simply because local authorities knew they were going to be asked specifically about what they were doing about their performance on direct payment uptake. This made me feel like this particular system lever might be being used effectively. I'm going to keep updating my spreadsheet as more reports are published. It will be interesting to see if and when all the reports are available, whether the situation changes. In the meantime, at TLAP, we'll be delivering a full programme of support, targeted mainly at that practitioner level, which feels like the most critical area if we're going to effect positive change. This must result in maximised choice control in the spirit envisaged so long ago now by the champions of the independent living movement and their supporters in the system.